from a time when the church is in its crisis point right now in so many ways, and yet is so alive. Let's read about when the church really was birthed. We've been looking at Acts, haven't we, right at the start of Acts over the last few weeks. So we picked the story up again in Acts 2, verses 42 to 47. If you want to grab a Bible, then feel free to do that, but we'll put it on the screen for you as well. Okay, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to anyone as he had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Okay, so we're going to see a video in a minute from the Finns that they've recorded earlier on about something that's a little bit similar to this. But just before we do that, some of the context that lots of you will know so well, because isn't this this is a passage that we look at a lot in church, isn't it? But that's because it's the birth of the church. There's this incredible moment that we had in the past few weeks with Pentecost, as the people are probably pretty afraid, worshipping, praying, and then tongues of fire come on them. They burst out into the street. They start speaking in all different languages, and people come to faith all over the place in Jerusalem, from all different nations. And so then this week we see them beginning to do what the church does. It's growing rapidly. Every day people are joining their number, and they're being baptized, and they're repenting of their previous way of life, and they're turning completely to Jesus. But what's really interesting as well is that it's happening in homes. This isn't a religion that Jesus came to set up that is of like control or anything. This isn't a centrally organized thing. This is happening in homes, but then also the apostles are speaking into it, and miracles are happening through them the whole time. But it's spreading like wildfire. It's beyond what can be contained. Also fascinating that they broke bread in homes together every day, that they did that. There were clearly leaders in homes, maybe in home groups, perhaps people gathered together, not just in their families, but in home groups like we do as well. They broke bread together all the time. We've done that as a family. We do that every Friday. I don't know about you, if you do that as a family. That's great to do that. Break bread is like a command, isn't it? Jesus says, when you do this, do it in remembrance of me. Like, remember what I did for you when you do that. So you can do that. I believe we can't call it Holy Communion, but who cares? Let's break bread together. It's so important that we do that. So let's do that more. And God added to their number every single day those who were being saved. So that's the sort of context that this is all in, a very dynamic time. And I don't know about you, whether you're picked up on this, but I'm seeing across the UK people added to churches every day. People I'm in contact with who are saying they're inviting their friends in to try church in different ways, and it's happening today as much as it has ever done in the past. Potentially being able to join a church virtually makes it easier for some people. So that's happening. The Finns then did something called Table, and that's what we're going to hear about now. And that sort of is one example. It's a fantastic example. It's one example of something that's happened in G2 that's a little bit like this. So let's watch that now.
Hi everybody, it's great to share with you today something of the story of Table. So just over 3 years ago, our very good friend Miriam Swaffield had a dream about running a group called Table. The idea was to create a safe space where people could come together and share life, but where they could also openly and honestly explore faith together. Now, around the same time, we were having an extension done on our house. We're extending the downstairs, and we had a real vision and a real heart that the downstairs space should be used by God to help build community amongst people. We shared this with Miriam. Miriam shared her dream for running this group called Table, and very quickly ideas formed and a plan came together for developing a new G2 group.
We didn't have a programme of activity planned or set sessions for leaders to lead. We literally wanted to build family amongst a group of people who are keen to find out more and to journey together. Amazingly, the group numbers filled up really quickly, and the week before it all began, we prayed in this space here together, and we prayed for each individual by name, and it was brilliant. Since then, Table has been run a further 2 times, and we've seen about 40 people over the last 3 years over that time. And it's been such a privilege to see people grow in faith, people pray and prophesy for the first time, people get baptised and invite their friends to G2 and even to subsequent tables, and to grow some really precious friendships.
Absolutely, it's been brilliant. And we've done some reflecting on Table, thinking about it, and we've realised that there are several important values that are needed in order to build meaningful community, just like we see and we've been reading about in the early church in Acts 2. And the first value we describe is family. Now, we recognise that not everyone's experience of family is always positive, but where family works well, it's a place where people feel welcomed and included and are able to be themselves. We used to have this phrase that we'd say in the group, which was, there is always a place for you at the table. No matter who you are, no matter what your questions or your doubts, or even the doubts you had that you didn't even dare think about, let alone ask. At Table, you were always accepted and loved. This was a key value that ran through the heart of everything that we did. The only thing about this phrase was that the week before we were about to run the first table, we didn't actually have a table. So we're about to say, come, and there's always a place for you at the table, but you haven't got anywhere to sit. So we very quickly got praying and asking God, we need to find a table. God miraculously provided us with £50. Then we spotted on Facebook ads that there was a table going locally, and it wasn't just any old table. It was fairly new, and it was humongous. It could be extended, and it just went on for yards. We could fit loads and loads of people around it, and it was being sold for £50. So just in the nick of time, we got this table, and we were able to say to people, there is actually always a space at the table for you.
Amazing provision from God. It's brilliant. Another key value for us was that it was a shared experience. The group shaped the time. As I mentioned earlier, we didn't have a planned and prepared programme that someone could just turn up to and consume. Right from the beginning, people named their questions, the things that they wanted to explore about faith. They took it in turns to bake. They came and laid the table, served one another drinks, and even mucked in with the washing up.
Yes.
We're very grateful, thank you. But we deliberately put ourselves in a position of needing one another and of serving one another. It wasn't a dinner party. It wasn't a space where leaders came and did everything for guests. It was a space where we were cultivating family, and the shared experience was such an important part of that.
Absolutely. And I think the final value that we would reflect on would be prayer. This was at the heart of everything that we did at Table. And we didn't shy away from being led by the Holy Spirit, believing that anyone can hear God's voice, no matter where they are in their journey of faith. And we also knew that we could learn from one another in this as well. And through creating a safe space, it meant that we could have a go at things like prayer and prophecy. And there were some amazing times where people heard God's voice for the first time. They encountered his tangible presence there with them, experienced his peace, had pictures or words of encouragement to give to other people, even visions to give to other people in the group. It was just amazing, the experiences that happened as we built community together. So, Suze, I want to ask you, what was your favourite memory or moment from the tables that we've been a part of?
Yeah, every single one. My favourite moment came fairly early on in our time together. At the beginning of each table, we as leaders would bring an object and use it to help describe our faith journey. And I'd always bring this chip mug.
Yeah, I brought my ginormous telescope.
Yeah, right into the middle. But my chip mug, I love cups of tea. And I would talk about how my faith with God would sometimes feel like a comforting cup of tea in a difficult time that helped restore me. Or a motivating cup of tea, first cup of tea of the morning that gets you going for the day. Or that cuppa, the chat over a cuppa with a friend where you're getting wisdom, and I get my wisdom from God. And the chips would remind me that I'm broken and that I needed God. And anyway, we would ask people to bring an object to help describe where they were in their faith journey. And we never knew what was going to come. And each time there would just be this jaw-dropping moment where people would vulnerably share their deep stories with us and with this new group of people. And it was really humbling that people would feel able to share with such a new group of people, and yet they seemed to feel part of the family. And that really set the tone for the rest of our time together. And that was a really amazing part of Table, and what really helped, I think, as we went through the time together.
Absolutely, some real deep moments of building community where God was really, really at work. And I think if we were to summarise from our experience of Table, it strikes me that maybe this was for us just a little bit of a glimpse of what we see in the early church in Acts 2, which we've been reading about, where this group were all there together. They shared things in common. They were on the journey together of growing in faith, praying together, sharing with one another, being vulnerable with one another too, pressing into building community and building family. And through that, God did some amazing things. And our story and experience of Table has been that when we sought to do that with God's help, he has done some amazing things. So we just want to encourage you and want to say to G2 Burn Home, keep pressing into community, keep exploring how you can build family, because it seems that God moves powerfully in that way, and he moves powerfully and builds his community, builds his kingdom, through family and through community.
Table is just the most welcoming place you could ever imagine. It is full of such a wide variety of people in so many different stages of faith, and I think the thing that's meant the most to me from Table is the friendships that I've made. I went to Table 2 years ago and I'm still friends with so many of the people that I met.
I took part in Table during my first year at university. I'm now graduated with a job and a real adult, but it really changed the way that I experienced G2. The elements of community and love and sharing a meal together really changed my experience of faith, and I got baptised straight afterwards as a result.
For me, Table means sharing. Sharing food, sharing cake, sharing yourself, and sharing God with people who are just as keen to listen and share in return.